Welcome, everybody. I'm Kimberly Dobreiner, head of P&G Studios. I'm here with Brand Storytelling, which I had the honor of judging some of the brand storytelling work. And I'm here with the creative team for Own the 8 Count. I'm very excited to be talking with you all. Can you each give us a quick introduction so everyone knows who you are?
Hi, my name is Dawn Manning. I am the EIC of Westbrook, and I'm also the executive producer on Own the 8 Count.
Hey everybody, so I am Cam. I am the director of creative content at Westbrook and one of the creative leads on the 8 Count.
I'm David Naiman, global lead of talent and content partnerships at Logitech, kind of the day-to-day point on this project for the brand, as well as a producer on the film.
Thank you all for being here. And I think what everyone's interested in knowing is a little bit about how these projects come about. Where do they start? How do they originate? So for this one, where did this start? Was this something that Westbrook was looking at? David, was this something you were looking at? Tell me a little bit about what's the origin story of the film.
Yeah, great question. Probably the best place to lead it off. So, the film, I think what's sort of important to recognize is like the film is sort of the, I wouldn't even say the conclusion, but it's not the starting point of the partnership or sort of our affiliation with JaQuel, who's the star of the film. This film was really born after sort of building a partnership, having other sort of campaign elements, and then recognizing that there's a bigger story to tell. And there's more to do. So this actually started, this process and this partnership with JaQuel recently, actually started in 2021 as part of our Creator for BIPOC initiative. JaQuel, for those who are not familiar, and you will be once you see the film, if you haven't seen it already, he is one of the biggest and best commercial choreographers in the world. And best known maybe for Single Ladies. He's making Beyonce Single Ladies. He's Megan Thee Stallion's choreographer. And, he's created, these iconic pieces of work that have influenced and inspired not just dancers, but really has integrated itself into, pop culture in general. And one of the things that we sort of found out in sort of these initial partnership conversations with him before we even thought about a film was sort of the struggles that, he himself and the industry in general have when it comes to ownership and credit of the work. If you think about photographers, or painters who paint something, or a lyricist who writes something, that's IP. That's something that, they can clearly point to and say, I've created, I own this. And that's not what we came to find out. That doesn't exist in dance the same way that it should and does in other mediums and other formats. So we, we thought that there, is a bigger story to tell, but there's also a bigger partnership. JaQuel's fight and JaQuel's mission clearly aligned with Logitech and our brand, our values, where we kind of sit and what our purpose is with creator rights. And so we initially started with more of a partnership around how do we change the game for future JaQuels. And part of that was, all right, let's help the next JaQuel Knights, these TikTok creators, these choreographers who've created these dance moves, but don't necessarily have the ownership or the credit that they have or need. And how do we help them? So we started there. And then sort of as we dug deeper, we realized again that there's a bigger story to tell, and there's a more important story to tell, and we need to figure out how to do it in a much bigger way. And so that's really when the conversation about like, what about a film? Like, what if we really go, kind of go back to the roots of storytelling, and sort of figure that piece out. And there wasn't a budget attached to it. There wasn't like when you start a marketing initiative, like, all right, you clearly know like this is happening 6 months, 3 months, etc. That didn't exist here. I think we were just very passionate about the project, about him, and we went and we fought for some budget, and fortunately we were able to sway some people, and here we are.
So how did Westbrook get involved?
So we again, and I'll kick it over to Don and Cam, but we are the brand. We had this great partner JaQuel. We had like a high level vision of like what we think we wanted to do, but we are not as much as we think we might be. We're not these prolific storytellers or content. Our content expertise is not in filmmaking. So our goal was to find the best partner we could to help tell the story in the way that it needed to be told in a medium that it should be told in, and find the partner that can help us sort of make sure that we're thinking about things the right way, and can bring a level of excellence and expertise. And here comes Westbrook.
Yeah, and I'll also add, just in the spirit of just collaboration, partnerships, and relationships, I believe back in 2021, we actually began our initial relationship with Logitech. We did some work with Jaden and Willow, and then on a project that I directed for the new UE Fits products that they were pushing at the time. And then we also did some creative producing for some work for Little Nas X and D Smoke. So the relationship kind of already was there. So when you really think about the intersection of JaQuel, Logitech, Westbrook, when it came time to start talking about this project and to start to really ideate around what it could be, it was just a really organic way for us to be able just to come together. And, you know, we were able to do what we did. And so we brought on different team members and child artists to be our director. And we assembled, like, you know, the producers for the film. And then we were kind of off to the races with that. But I'll kick it over also to Don to add anything.
You've added all to that one. So you've actually covered.
Dawn, maybe talk a little bit about how once you guys started putting the team together and worked with David, how did the storyline come about? How did the creative form, like, did you have a story arc? David, did you already have one, or was that part of the process? Like, how did that happen?
It was definitely a part of the process. It was many different versions of what the story was coming out to be, along with Child, our director, and Cam and Walt and our creative team. They kind of was able to like go through it, and there was many calls even with JaQuel of how we're going to tell the story. And also the story started to tell itself, because once we started to get in the interview process of talking to different choreographers and creatives of what they went through, that kind of made it the story take on its life of its own, as most docs do. The interviewers kind of, their stories kind of shape the project, and that's kind of what happened throughout the project, as in picking the different people. And they would mention someone like, oh, let's get them, or they would tell a story like, oh yeah, Britney Spears, let's get him. So we kind of was able to move it around based on what people were saying.
And I just to add to that, like I think that's really the value of having a great partner, like like Westbrook, part of this process. From a brand level, you're very much thinking about your KPIs and your goals and sort of and so to be able to have a partner who can sort of like look beyond that and really focus on the storytelling, the creative, and really get into sort of the nitty gritty. Like, we can do that to a certain extent, and we do that, but like this is, making a film and a short film versus making, a 30-second or 2-minute, influencer driven piece is a little bit different. So we were really thankful to have a partner like Westbrook, who could really sort of hold our hand throughout this process. And I don't think without it, we would sort of be at this point.
And David, you mentioned your KPIs. So what was it? What was Logitech's desire? Like, what were you hoping to accomplish? What were your objectives? How do you measure success in this project?
Yeah. So the most important thing was to do right by our partner and JaQuel. This is his story. This is his fight. So before we get into like KPIs and goals and all that, like it was really like being able to tell his story and honor him and his work and his fight. The reason we partnered with JaQuel was not because we thought he could sell more webcams or keyboards or mics, is because his story and his fight and his mission really resonated with who we are as a brand. This project stemmed for Logitech for Creators business division, which is all about creating support products, experiences that can help enable and empower creators. And so our goal and our mission, from the creator and the content standpoint, was to find partners who align with that and can help us tell that bigger story. There was an intentional decision that we made that the brand involvement in this film beyond monetary is really light. There's a logo card, if we're really getting the nitty gritty of the logo card. There's a little piece at the end that we sort of, that the brand is called out, but it's called for a purpose. There was actually a moment that actually brought everything together. There wasn't a desire where, well, let's figure out where we can put a mouse or a keyboard. Like, it was not about that as well, which I think also takes a lot of trust and patience and buy-in from, folks across an organization, because you can't make those decisions in a silo. So for us, it was really more about brand awareness and equity, and really, I think, being sort of a lighthouse for other creators so that they can see and understand that we are a brand that not just talks about our values or speaks about it, but actually, creates opportunities and experiences and moments that can celebrate and uplift other partners.
Awesome. So, you kind of talked a little bit about this, David. in the start that you kind of walked your way towards, we should do a film, we should do a documentary. What got you to film, and what role, Westbrook, did you guys play in what kind of film? How do we do this? Like, was that like up front? You said, okay, we want to do a film, let's bring in Westbrook, or was it kind of like, we're not sure what we want to do? What do you guys think? How did that work on deciding?
Yeah, I'll start and I'll kick it over to Don and Cam. But we started like, when you get in the brainstorming and the creative mode, you're like, you throw a lot of stuff out there, and film was one of it, but we didn't know what kind of film, short film, feature film. Is it something that could be a short like a docu series or bite size? So like we knew we wanted to tell the story. We knew there was a there. There was a lot of there. Just also figuring out in which Westward help, like what is the there that we want to concentrate on. And then again, that's the value of bringing somebody Westbrook. Like we kind of came with a seed, tiny minuscule seed and a vision and idea, and they were really able to sort of guide us and with data, with creative, like, and really sort of help shepherd a direction in which we ultimately took, and provide some great rationale and expertise along the way.
Yeah, and I'll add, I think when we were really trying to decide exactly the what of it all, we knew that we wanted to do something that was going to be impactful, something that was going to be informative. We knew that community was really important because, like David said earlier, like the brand really was a spotlight to a lot of different things that some people just weren't familiar with. Rather, it was the different creators who we featured, or it was just a lot of the issues that some people were experiencing in the darkness. We wanted to make sure that we had a wide array of different talent and voices that were going to be represented in the film. So, of course, we have the big choreographers, the hero choreographers like JaQuel, Debbie Allen, Brian Friedman, Jamal Simmons, but we also wanted to make sure that we were amplifying the voices of people who may not have the same platforms or the opportunities that some of the bigger artists were. And so when we started to really figure out exactly, okay, well, how are we going to tell this story? What exactly is going to be our entry point into this? And what do we want the takeaway to be? That's kind of how everything really started to shape. And we really wanted to do our due diligence to really understand exactly what it was that we were trying to achieve. We wanted people, creators of all backgrounds, not just dancers, not just creators, to understand the value in their work and to be able to make sure that they are protecting themselves, making sure that people who deserve the credit were getting the credit where it was due. So there was a lot of different things and a lot of different things that we really started to consider as it pertains to what it was that we were going to create. And of course, it's so hard to put so many of these different ideas because we probably could have had a docu-series, let alone a full feature documentary with how much that we could have included in this film. But we really wanted to make sure that everything from who we brought on as our director to the type of visuals that we did to how we kind of approached the interview styles and the different segments, we really wanted to make sure that we were packaging something together that was really not just the lighthouse, but really was the spark to really kind of creating this new normal of making sure that we are protecting creatives of all different backgrounds, not even just creatives, making sure that we are protecting people across several verticals and several industries. And I believe that that's what we were able to do with On the Account.
And also to add on with what Cam is saying is that also not only about the creators, it was the audience watching, because even at different festivals, we had a lot of people like, oh, I didn't even think about when I do a TikTok, I'm doing somebody else's work and not to tag them or not to give them credit. They just do it and put it up there, not knowing that it will help that artist get their name out there by saying choreography by. So that's just something that just is eye-opening as someone that's not even a dancer or that's just watching, just doing a TikTok video for fun, not realizing that that piece of choreography is owned by someone and giving that person their proper credit.
Don, you were talking about yes, that's amazing actually, because it speaks to how the film can create impact, right? Impact with choreographers, beyond choreographers, raising awareness, which I think is amazing. I think that's, David, part of what you speak to about what Logitech is trying to do. Dawn, as you were talking about the interview process and how kind of one interview might have led to another, might have created a connection, is there any sort of anecdote or anything that happened through the shooting process that you'd like to share, or that you thought was fun, interesting, or surprising?
I would say our probably favorite day from probably everyone on set was the day we had our dancers there. It was, and Debbie Allen. I would say that the dancers being on set, they just brought a different energy, and it just reminded us of this is why we're doing this. We're trying to tell a story through art, and a lot of the times art is kind of put at the back burner for documentaries. It's not more so, it's more about getting the information out as opposed to let's be creative. Let's put them in the basement and throw some light on them and let them tell the story with their bodies. So that's something that we were able to like intertwine in with the film. Not only are you getting information, but you're also seeing the art form that these choreographers and dancers work so hard to put out there. So I would say that's definitely one of the biggest things on set. And then also just watching and hearing the legend, Debbie Allen, speak about just from her fame days and how she got things, how things could be copywritten that's like, you can't really do that, like the moonwalk and things of that nature. Is like, is it Michael Jackson? Is it not Michael Jackson? It's just one dance. It's just a step, a series of steps. So it was really good to hear her point of view, because her point of view is sometimes was different from other point of view. So we learned a lot in those kind of interviews, just hearing how she's been in the game a long time and how her vision and her point of view might not be the same as a TikToker point of view, because they're literally having fun. Some of them are having fun and they're not choreographing for a major television show. So it was just good to see the opposites and learn the opposites on set.
Yeah, and I'll add too, I actually did most of the interviews coming in with my dance background. I also was a dance major at the University of Kansas. So I already kind of had a little bit of context that I was trying to bring into the work that we were creating. But like John said, it was so interesting to come in with this certain kind of like approach to the interview and to see where the interview went. Debbie was by far one of the most legendary, iconic interviews that I've ever done. But it was just the authenticity and it was just like this realness about it that was really refreshing, because she is a legacy. She is an OG. Like, she is a mother of all mothers as it pertains to the dance and the choreographer community. So to be able to have that historical context and for her to be able to articulate some of our themes and so many of the topics that we would touch on in the film, and the way that she did was really exciting. But it was also being able to hear from people like Aaliyah, who is a choreographer who has worked with Beyonce. Well, she's got off tour with Beyonce Renaissance. So I'm like, oh my God, we just interviewed her before she went on tour. So that was great. But, you know, hearing from her, hearing Brian Freeman's experience working with Britney Spears, Jamal Sims doing work with Aladdin and more on the film and in your Broadway stages. It was such a eye-opening experience for even someone like myself and Don. I don't, want to speak for you, but coming in, believing that we knew so much about the dance community and then hearing so many of these stories and experiences, like, oh my God, I never thought about when I watched that performance being performed on a stage, if the choreographer was properly getting credit. Or like Don mentioned earlier, I did the Savage Challenge during the pandemic when it came out, and I never once thought about who the Black incredible young lady was who did it. So it was really eye-opening in a lot of different ways, but it was very, very fun to be able to really hear these stories. And most importantly, it felt really good to know that we were doing it from a good place and that we were putting out stories that not only were going to benefit the people who were featured on the film, but so many people who would be able to watch and experience it as well.
Yeah, and some of the people that were featured. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Some of the
Go ahead. I was going to ask you a question.
Some of the choreographers that we featured, like Galen Hooks, for example, I remember her from when, like, she's a longtime friend of mine, but I also remember when she helped get dancers into SAG. Like, we were part of the fight from the beginning. So these choreographers and dancers have been fighting for years and they still fighting. And so with the partnership with Logitech and with them helping get creators copywritten and things of that nature, their copyrights to their own work, that just gives another avenue and a vessel for creators to get their work out there, because there is a brand like Logitech that will give them a voice. And that's where, when I was starting as a dancer, there was nobody coming to reach out to help us copyright things. So we didn't even know that was even a thing,
Right. And I want to double down really quickly and give Logitech their flowers, because to Don's point, it was so incredible to have a partner who was not just saying, oh, tag, or I'm now have the baton, what can I do? They were doing the work. The work was being done. And so that was really refreshing too, because it was almost like this spirit that we had coming onto the project as their, with Westbrook as the partners. It was a spirit that we already felt like we want to be a part of this, and we want to get behind partners like Logitech, because they are really making some noise and kind of leading the way and kind of sending a message to a lot of different brands of like, this is how you do it. And so that was something that was really, really incredible. And as it pertains to brand partnerships, that oftentimes you don't really have a partner like Logitech who had already been doing so much of the work and who was genuinely so passionate about what was the road ahead. So just want to give Logitech, David, and the whole entire team their flowers for that, because that was one of the best highlights of the project for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that because I want to ask you a little bit about the partnership. But David, I wanted to ask, through the process, the production process, how involved were you? How involved was Logitech, and was there anything that was surprising or remarkable from your perspective?
Yeah, I would say we were pretty involved. I think there's an art to how involved one should be. So it's this delicate balance, knowing when to lean in, but also like knowing when to lean out, because the purpose and the value and the intent of working with a partner like Westbrook is that their expertise, their background, their excellence, that they do this every single day, and really good at it. So I think it was definitely the balance. We were involved. I would definitely, from the creative to the feedback, and we thank JaQuel and Westbrook for allowing us to be part of that process as well, and really like kind of getting in the nitty gritty to some degree as well. We also had to sort of, and this was my role, and sort of educating others that this is a little bit different than other initiatives and other marketing channels and sort of other marketing type assets that you create, whether you're creating brand assets or you're creating influencer driven assets or paid media, whatever it may be. So this is really more about really the storytelling at its core, and less about integration or how does the brand show up and where does the brand show up. So it was it's just something you have to like constantly remind yourself, like the why you're doing this partnership, or why you're taking this approach, and making sure that the feedback you're giving or the mindset that you're taking when it comes to the partnership in general is always reflected back into the why.
And that's, I'll go to the partnership because you guys have talked about it. Maybe you've kind of answered this, but what makes this partnership special? Like, why did it sounds like it worked really well. You guys are all loving on each other. So, from a Westbrook standpoint, and you do a lot of brand partnership work, like what made this one, and I think you've kind of spoken to it, so I might be asking you to repeat that, but what made this one unique? And I think I'd love the same from you, David, on what made it unique, the partnership with Westbrook unique.
Yeah.
I would say, go ahead, Cam.
Yeah, like I said, we do a lot of brand partnerships at Westbrook, and all of them are really unique, and we take pride in all of our work, and we believe that we really have established really great relationships in the community across different verticals as it pertains to entertainment media. What makes Logitech really special is kind of echoing what I just said earlier about like working with the brand who also understood the goal and understood the mission behind what we were going to be doing with the project was really nice. Sometimes, again, not always, but sometimes, you may have a disconnect of like what everybody's KPIs are or what exactly is like that. How do you measure success? But it was a really nice organic road that we were on together that made it that much more special, from the ideation, from the development, from identifying the different creators that we were going to feature, to exactly what was going to be the story, what was going to be the impact, what is going to be our call to action, what is going to be the thing that we really want people to not only experience or to take away from the film, but how can they apply this into their lives? How can we make sure that more people understand copyright law and ownership laws and all of those different things? So having a partner who was already so knowledgeable about the actual subject was really helpful, because again, sometimes you can speak different languages, and we wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page. And this by far was one of the projects where it was so step in step, lock and key, like it just all worked really organically. And of course you have your standard production, hurdles and different things that, we have to overcome, but we truly overcame them together. And I believe that that was felt from us on the Westbrook side, to our partners, to our talent. And I think the result of that is the project that we have.
Anything to add, David? How would you talk to unique partners?
I think that's well said. I think the other big piece, or why I think this was successful, is that I think we had an opportunity to build some trust. So you kind of go into every partnership with, you mentioned we kind of given flowers, and you go with like the best intentions, but like as we know, that's not always the case. And as you get further into project and conflicts or differences, or maybe just visions don't align. So I think what made this great was that this project took some time. And so, meeting directors together and fleshing out the concept together, and sort of like going through that process together, which is a delicate process. You've got ideas and creative, and there's a lot of subjectivity in that. It's not just looking at hard data. And so how you give feedback and making sure that like everybody's going in the same direction. So I think we had, through that process very early on, we sort of built that trust together. So by the time we got to production and post and sort of everything else, like it just felt, we were all sort of going in the same direction. So I think that part of it, we all work with tons of other partners, and not to say that none of them are get there to this point. But I think the level of trust that we were able to build up early on played a huge role. And so, especially from the brand side, where we were able to take a little bit of a deep breath, knowing that we've made this investment, but like it's in good hands, and the vision is a shared vision between all parties, not just Logitech and Westbrook, but most importantly, JaQuel.
Amazing. So how's this doing at festivals? How are you? I think you're having some success. Like, how is it doing, and what's the plan for distribution going forward?
So festival wise, I would say our biggest excitement was the Essence Fest. We actually won Essence Fest. That was fun. Cam was actually there. On that one, I didn't go to that one, but Cam was there. So it's definitely getting some love at festivals. Just seeing the audience's reactions. I cry every single time. Like, I'm surprised I'm not crying through this interview. But it's definitely just to get people's, like, it's just to watch people laughing and their emotions around the film. And it's just like people are like yelling at the screen, like, what? Like you get those reactions because they, a lot of people don't know.
Right.
So I would say that's probably been the most rewarding part about the film, is watching other people take in the film at festivals. As far as distribution, we're still obviously looking. We're on the march to look and find a home for this at the end of the day. And so that's where we are right now as far as distribution.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, yes, really glad that you make anything, you make a 30-second video or a 23-minute short film. The one thing you want is that when you put it on the world and you lose all ownership and control, is that there's somebody out there that responds to it. So we're really thankful that that was the case with this and the story. The distribution, in addition to the festivals, I think is something that, is really important for brands to think about from the very beginning. I think that's definitely a key learning for us here in this partnership as well. It's like, all right, you spend a lot of energy and thinking and time about like bringing this out into the world and making it, and like actually like, which is a huge achievement in itself, like going from seed to actually, this thing is a living, breathing, project. And then distribution, where does it live? So we're fortunate that the festival sort of circuit, if you will, has been kind to us. And I think this will ultimately absolutely live on social in some capacity. But as we have found out, there's a lot of other places where something like this could live. There's OTT, there's streamers. And so I think for any brand that's considering doing this, I think very important to think about distribution very early on. Don't think about it after you're successful and, oh, great, now we've got this. It's a good problem to have. But really make sure that you've got to think about that end goal early on in the process, the same way that you would think about, creative and everything else. It's super important.
Amazing. So it's been wonderful talking with you all. You have made an incredible film. It was a joy to watch. Any last words that you want to give folks that are listening who are, trying to do this same thing and make an impact, David, like you're doing, and create amazing storytelling? Any last words from each of you?
I would just say it's worth it. You might not always be able to like maybe point, depending on where you are, to this is the ROI, but know your metrics, know why you're doing it. And again, I think you mentioned this, I think, a little bit earlier when we spoke offline. Like, it's important to create opportunities and experiences where your audience can opt in. And I think brands play a really important role in that. So let's keep this momentum going. Is what I would say.
Should I go,
Dawn?
Don? Or
No, go ahead, Cam.
No, Don can start.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, what I'll just say is, for any creatives out there who have an idea, is just to execute it. Like, roll up your sleeves and just push it out. All stories are deserving to be told, and our story did not start with this film, and it will not end with this film. It is such a small mark in the bigger fight, in the bigger journey. So we want for everybody to be able to be inspired by what we're doing and to kind of add to it. Like, come forward, make your voice be heard, fight for what you believe is right. Don't be silent. Don't believe that there's no one out there who will be willing to listen, because there's always an audience for what you have. So if you're somebody who is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place as it pertains to a story or a creative idea, I would say push that boulder off to the side, get out there and make sure that your work is being seen, because it can have the same type of impact and community and the building that we were trying to do with On the Account. And again, just for the partners out there, it's great to be able to push products and do those different things, but it's even greater when there's impact and when there's opportunities to be able to do work like Logitech I did with us for On the Account.
So I would say my message to anyone watching this would be, as far as a creator is concerned, to copyright your work. You work very hard to create, and this is for filmmakers, for writers, for choreographers, dancers, copyright your work. And like, just this project alone made me realize that there's so much education that still needs to be out there of how to have ownership of your work. And that's all you have is your name, your work, your likeness. So work hard to get your copyright and to copyright that. And that should be a lesson from anybody that watches this film too. And also credit the creators. Find out who made that TikTok. Find out who made that art piece that you just posted about this piece of art. Like, tag them, give them let them own their account.
That's amazing. It's interesting. My daughter just wrote a play, and one of the things we were talking about is, how do you get the rights for it? Like, how do you make sure that you have the rights? So I think it's such an important action for artists to think about, whether it's you're just starting out, but like I think it's an amazing call to action to artists.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you all. It's been a joy to talk with you. Congratulations again on your wonderful film, and I look forward to seeing how well it continues to do.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.